The shadow of the hump, the ghost riders of the great American desert. The hook. In 1856, the citizens of Indianola, Texas, witnessed a sight so surreal they thought the heat had finally fractured their minds. Emerging from the salt spray of the Gulf of Mexico were not horses, not cattle, and not men on foot, but 34 towering, groaning beasts with curved necks and disdainful eyes. These were the Sultan's gift to the Stars and Stripes. What followed was a decade of blood, sand, and an experiment so bizarre that the U.S. government tried to erase it from the history books. This is the true story of the U.S. Camel Corps. Chapter 1. The Visionary and the Sands. The year was 1853. Jefferson Davis, a man who would later lead the Confederacy, but was then the ambitious U.S. Secretary of War, sat in a mahogany-paneled office in Washington, D.C., staring at a map of a country that was dying of thirst. The United States had just swallowed the massive territories of the Mexican Cession, California, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona. It was a golden empire, but there was a dead zone in the middle, the great American desert. Mules died, horses collapsed, men went mad under the relentless sun of the Mojave. Davis had a radical, almost heretical idea. If the American West looked like the Sahara, why weren't they using the technology of the Sahara? He lobbied Congress for $30,000, a fortune at the time, to import ships of the desert. Most of Congress laughed. They called it the dromedary farce. But Davis was persistent. He sent the USS Supply across the Atlantic, commanded by David Dixon Porter, a future Civil War admiral, with orders to scour the Levant for the finest camels the Ottoman Empire had to offer. Chapter 2. The Voyage of the Damned. The crossing of the Atlantic was a nightmare of engineering and zoology. Imagine a wooden sailing ship pitching and rolling in gale-force winds, with 33 camels crammed into a custom-built camel deck. The animals were seasick. They groaned with a sound like grinding rocks. To keep them upright during storms, the sailors built elaborate harnesses to suspend the beasts so their legs wouldn't snap as the ship tilted 45 degrees. Among the crew was a man who would become a legend, Haji Ali. The Americans couldn't pronounce his name, so they called him Hi Jolly. He was a Syrian-Greek convert to Islam, a master camel driver, who looked at the rough-and-tumble American soldiers and realized they had no idea how to talk to a camel. A horse is a servant. A camel is a business partner who hates your guts. Chapter 3. Texas Dust and Desperate Miles. When the camels finally stepped onto Texas soil in 1856, the local horses stampeded in terror. The smell of a camel, a pungent mix of musk and fermented desert scrub, was enough to send a cavalry mount into a frenzy. The Army assigned Edward Fitzgerald Beale, a rugged explorer with nerves of iron, to lead an expedition from Texas to California. His mission proved that camels could outwork any mule. The skeptics watched with glee, waiting for the camels to die. Instead, the camels thrived. While the mules required gallons of water and expensive grain, the camels ate prickly pear cactus, thorns and all, and went days without a drink. In the heat of the Arizona summer, Beale recorded in his journal, "My spirit rises as I watch these noble brutes. They carry 800 pounds of lead as if it were feathers. They swim rivers that drown our horses. They are the future of the American Empire." Chapter 4. The Curse of the Camel. But there was a problem. The American soldier was not built for the camel. The camels didn't trot, they swayed. This pacing gait caused land sickness in the soldiers. Furthermore, camels are highly intelligent and hold grudges. If a soldier mistreated a camel, the animal would wait, sometimes for days, and then vomit a green, foul-smelling bile directly into the soldier's face with sniper-like accuracy. Tensions boiled over. The infantry hated them, the cavalry feared them, and then the darkest year in American history arrived, 1861. Chapter 5: Civil War and Abandonment. When the Civil War erupted, the Camel Corps was caught in the crossfire. The base at Camp Verde was seized by the Confederacy. Suddenly, the U.S. Army had bigger problems than desert logistics. They had to fight brothers. The camels were forgotten. Some were sold to circuses. Some were used to haul salt in Nevada mines. Many were simply turned loose into the wild. This is where the history becomes a ghost story. Chapter 6: The Red Ghost of Arizona. For decades after the Civil War, legends began to emerge from the high deserts of Arizona. Miners spoke of the Red Ghost, a massive feral camel with a terrifying reddish tint that wandered the canyons. One day, a rancher fired a shot at the beast. When he approached the body, he didn't just find a camel. He found a skeleton strapped to its back with rawhide cords. A dead man had been riding that camel for years, his bones bleached white by the sun, a literal ghost in the machine of the desert. It turned out that a soldier, terrified of falling off the camel, had lashed himself to the hump. The camel had outlived him, carrying his corpse across the wilderness until the skin rotted away, leaving only a skeletal rider to haunt the frontier. The legacy. Why this story matters. The camel experiment was a moment where America almost became a different kind of nation, one that adapted to the land rather than trying to break it. Today, if you wander deep into the Gila National Forest or the dunes of Death Valley, some claim they still see them. Geneticists have even suggested that some feral camel DNA might still linger in the Southwest, a silent echo of Jefferson Davis's grand failed dream.